Hello, my name is Mage, and welcome to Black and White Thinking. Or welcome back, perhaps. Today we're going to be going over my final thoughts on T. Franklin and Max Sarin's Eat, Bang, Kill tour. I'm going to be doing them both together because otherwise this video would probably never get done, and have no script, just notes. So let's do this. So the fifth issue of this series essentially covers Harley and Ivy escaping Vixen and Pathetic, Harley and Ivy having an argument in the bar, Harley storming off to a strip club, and Ivy having a moment when Harley is kidnapped from said club. Now, I've said this before, there's a lot I like in this series. I get its vibe, I get what it's trying to do, but there's a lot that I feel is kind of terribly executed. For some reason the writing feels very on the nose sometimes. I feel like it might be because T is still in the earlier stages of being a professional writer, and I imagine that's terrifying. I've never been there, but I want to. She has this habit of not trusting what she's doing. She's a very much do a thing and then say the thing kind of writer. There's this old rule of show don't tell, and it's not always relevant, but a lot of these comics are showing us, for example, Ivy being toxic, and then telling us, Ivy, you've been toxic. Or Ivy distracting Harley with sex. A few pages later, Harley points out that Ivy's distracting her with sex. The first pages spoke for themselves. You didn't need to have the characters say the thing out loud, like you already just told us that we saw it. This is a visual medium. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I feel like it stagnated the pacing at certain points in these stories, and being that I don't love the characterization either, it's more noticeable to me, I guess. I feel like T's writing can stand on its own and that she should trust that. Like, she can be a good writer. She can. I know she can, I've seen it. And she should, like I said, trust her ability, because she has that ability. As always, I really love Max Sarin's art. I really like these scenes in the bath. They're just dumb and adorable, and they kind of have this old BTAS feel to them for some reason. Very much the Paul Dini, Harley and Ivy spin-off comics. And I really like the art in issues 5 and 6 and across the board, but definitely in 5 and 6, where we explore Ivy's memories and her trauma. I think that stuff was illustrated beautifully, and I want some of those panels as posters, to be honest. I'm not sure why Harley goes to a strip club. This is just a side note, kind of irrelevant to this comic, but being that this comic features a strip club, where else? Aesthetically, this feels very GTA San Andreas, which isn't really what I want to see in my female-led fiction. Like, I'm not against it. I played every GTA game and will till I die. I'm like a big GTA fan, but that kind of aesthetic feminism where we just pretend to be men, make it rain, go to a strip club, etc., etc. There's a thin line between embracing the male image of ourselves and supporting sex workers, which you should definitely do. I'm still not sure how I feel about that in my fiction. As much as we like to pretend we live in a utopia where most strippers want to be strippers, that's still not true. And I know this is fiction, but we've had lots of other issues in these comics raised politically, so I don't know why this one's kind of missed. I really did like the stuff that Ivy dealt with her trauma. I wish it was like a whole comic instead of like 3 pages, but it was good. Clunky, but good, and I wish we could see something like this in an episode. I'm really glad they addressed Ivy's dad. He's a total prick, by far the most abusive parent in this show, which is really saying something because Harley's parents tried to kill her. I talk about this a lot in my Harley Quinn compet essay from over a year ago, which you should watch if you haven't. It's kind of clunky and totally a mess, and I wish I could redo it, but I can't. So go watch that if you want to learn more about how I feel about Ivy's psyche. But yeah, I'm glad that they addressed her daddy issues, and I hope they come back up again, because that is way more important for me in regards to Ivy resolving her issues than anything with Kiteman. And, okay, on the subject of Kiteman, I know people are going to bite my fucking head off for this. Cheating really isn't the end of the world. I get a lot of comments that are like very focused on cheating because of its use in the show. And as much as I don't think you should go out and cheat on your partner, it's not cool and that person has feelings. I also don't think it's like an unforgivable horror. And I also think it's kind of biphobic to think that it is. I guess this is a comment not about Kiteman and for perhaps another bisexual video, but historically, it's quite hard to separate monogamy and monosexuality, and I don't necessarily believe, and I say this as a bisexual person in a monogamous relationship, that bisexuals are as inherently monogamous as other sexualities, in the bounds of Christian patriarchal norms that have been forced on us, or at least myself, that gives bisexual people very little space to ever explore those parts of themselves without ever being labelled a slut. Again, not about Ivy, but she's very full of self-loathing, like, I must punish myself, I must repent for the cheating, and it's like, what are you going to do? Put a bright red A on your tit? No, like, he's a grown man, you're a grown woman, shake hands and move on with your fucking life. It was good to see Ivy and Harleen together. This is my favourite panel, probably, this one of them and Frank. Dr. Harleen Quinzel was the first person that Ivy felt that connection to all those years ago, like we saw in All the Best Inmates Have Daddy Issues. This feels really, like, thematically circular and important. Like, Ivy can never have that connection with Dr. Harleen Quinzel again. Holly isn't that person anymore. The person doesn't exist, so it's nice that they had this moment. And also, Peaches is cute. Would kiss.
Harleen Quinzel was the only doctor who ever got through to me. What do you think that she would say to you?
Moving forward rapidly, because I can't wait to have this over with. I love Vixen. She should show up in the show. More Vixen, please. Vixen has been used better than I'd say Jim Gordon in this series. I enjoyed her. And I enjoyed the Ivy and Vixen team up. I enjoyed the Incredibles reference that Vixen made, although I don't understand why everyone in this book is so horny. Also, nicknames and the phrase my girl or your girl is a little overused in these comics. They're not very big, and when you use a phrase more than 5 times in a 10-page comic, it can be really picked up on. It can be almost poetic in its repetition. Another point about the show don't tell, this panel is a great example. This look explains everything you need to know. Ivy's clearly looking at Vixen now and thinking, wow, I wish that was me. There's a text box underneath that basically says, Ivy wishes that was her. You don't need both. And again, this is a visual medium. You don't need the text box. Sorry, this is me being really picky just because I'm a writer. Just a tip if you're ever writing comics. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about the plot of this. Like I said, the B plot that I guess essentially became the A plot, Mephetic. I don't know how necessary a lot of that was for this kind of adventure, an adventure that was supposed to go between seasons 2 and 3, but taking it out of context, it was fine. It did all the good superhero, supervillain stuff, and I enjoyed the happy ending and the girl ass kicking. The Steph Barbara thing is a little, I would love to just have a gender-fluid playface that doesn't feel like it's bordering on a joke, and to see them actually have a relationship where Barbara is Batgirl and Clayface is Stephanie, and they both know that. That would be a really cool thing to explore in season 3. Always nice to see Ivy ready to die for Harley, although it's strange that she was considering the Joker killing her a trauma of hers like 10 pages ago, and now she's doing it again. I appreciated Livewire. She was really annoying when she first appeared, so I'm glad she made up for that. I am always happy to see Zatanna. She's one of my favourite characters of all time. So yeah, good riddance, Mephetic. They sucked. And God bless the girls and the gays. The Tawny twist was interesting. I think it adds an interesting level to this, although I guess it doesn't make a huge sense based on what we've already seen in the show. And anything to fuck over Jim Gordon, I guess. The last issue, I think, was definitely stronger than the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd. I like the first and the last issues of Eat, Van, Kill best, I would say. It had a solid start and a solid end, a little bit of a sagging middle. I think my favourite thing about the last issue was the t-shirts that Harley and Ivy wear as they leave that say Yas and Quinn, which, chef's kiss, perfect. I also noticed that there may be a small season 3 spoiler in the last panel when it says we're going to Central City, because assumingly we're supposed to believe that the first episode of the 3rd season is going to pick up at the end of the comic. Central City is, for those that don't know, although I'm sure almost all of you do, is the city the Flash is from. So curious to see if we're going to get any Barry content in season 3. I love Barry Allen. Don't know what you do with him in a Harley Quinn show, but I love Barry Allen. Okay, so the real juice. My final thoughts after what essentially was just some rambling. I don't even know why you guys show up for these. These are not real reviews. I'm so sorry. But yeah, how did I feel about the series? Well, it's complicated, and I'm totally shit at rating books. Like, look at my average Goodreads score. I give everything a 3-star or above just because I'm scared of upsetting another writer. Most of them. There are a few exceptions. I didn't love this series in the same way I did something like Bombshells, but I didn't hate it either. and I definitely get its intention, and as someone who is starving for Harley and Ivy content, I would read it just for that. It was messy, but it wasn't malicious. And I'm glad at the end of the day that T and Max had this experience and that DC hired someone that, wasn't a skinny white dude over the age of 50 for once. I wouldn't have written the story this way, and I definitely wouldn't have portrayed Ivy and Harley this way, singularly or in their relationship, but it is what it is. They were petty and the pacing was an issue, but the cute stuff was cute, the highs were high, and the lows were, again, annoying, not mean, I don't think. The art is so good that I know that it's not just Max, that T is clearly great at expressing herself and how she sees the art accompanying her work, how she's told Max to include things, and you can see that they've had a good working relationship through these pieces. Overall, I really thought this series would have more bearing on show fans and whether or not people like the show and whether they should read it, and I really don't think it does. It's very standalone, even though it's set in the universe, and I don't think every show fan needs to read it. It very much feels like its own little thing. Would I recommend it? Yeah, probably. I've read worse. And like I said, I've read better, but I've read worse, and we have very little Harley and Ivy content that involves them actually being a couple, functioning or not. So at this point, the bar is so low that, I will support anything that addresses them as two bisexual women living their best life, or living their almost best life, whatever. My point is, regardless of how it's done, we get so little in canon that I feel bad even complaining about some of the writing issues I had with these comics, because I feel like I'm looking a gift horse in the mouth, Anyway, read it if you want a frivolous gay adventure that has a happy ending. If you want silly references to the show and cute kisses. These have been my rambling, unscripted thoughts on Eat, Bang, Kill. Highly uninteresting, but now we've got that out of the way, I can move on to some actual content for you all, some essays, some bigger, better things. Let me know how you felt about the comic. Like I said, I didn't love it, didn't hate it, it happened, it was fun. I'm glad I've had something to share with people over the last couple of months while we've missed the show. It's been fun talking to all you guys about it, and I will maintain, regardless of her writing, that T. Franklin has had a terrible response from fans of the show and should be supported on that alone. Hope you're all well. Mage out.